What's up, YouTube? I'm Mike. Today I'm back with, what is this? Part 4 of what it's really like to be homeless. These videos have been kind of crawling because there's just so much information that is contained in the how I actually became homeless part. So when I left you last time, Steve and I had just witnessed a guy have basically a stroke and become permanently paralyzed on one part of it, on the left side, I believe it was his body. The guy would never walk again after effectively overdosing on the speed that he had purchased, and it was a fucking eye-opening experience, to say the least. And like I said in that video, it really showed me the character of the guy that I was running with. Like, on the one hand, yeah, he's like this guy who's dealing drugs, but at the same time, like I said in the other video, the clientele that we had was very different than your typical street clientele. These were all functional people. Steve was a really good guy at heart, and he didn't want to see anything bad happen to anyone, which included me. So what ended up progressing after that event, things kind of took a dark turn. We had been on the road for a couple weeks at this point. So basically, like I was saying, Steve would run for about 2 weeks at a time. We would stay awake for 2 consecutive weeks, running clients, and then he would go back. He would go back to his apartment. He would crash out. And so that's what we did. On a side note, he had a girl. I'm not going to bring her into this at all, but he had a girlfriend on the side. I mean, he had a girlfriend back at home, and she was actually pregnant. She was actually pregnant and had about a 3 gram a day habit that she was maintaining while she was pregnant. Not good stuff. I will get to more details of that in later videos. Both of them had upwards of 3 gram a day habit. So basically, he would return home, and what I didn't really find out is that sometimes she would run with him. He wasn't usually gone from her for this length of time, and so she was starting to get a little bit triggered about this. Well, for whatever reason, I was rapidly becoming Steve's right-hand man. Like I said, I was kind of the brains of the operation, and there was a lot of things that I can't really talk about in these videos that I was able to be helpful with in his business. And so basically what happens, we came back to his apartment, and I crashed out, on the couch. So we were there for a couple days. Honestly, I don't even remember. I slept for a while, some undisclosed amount of time. I remember coming to, and she was in the kitchen, and she had made I think they were Pillsbury. Babe, were you out here? Yes. What are those cinnamon rolls you make? Pillsbury. Yeah, these Pillsbury cinnamon rolls. They come in like a tube, and you pop it open, and you put them all in a pan, and then they have the little the icing that you put on top. Dude, I haven't barely eaten shit in 2 weeks, and I sleep off this bender, and wake up, and the drug is out of my system, and we must have eaten 3 racks of those fucking. They were the best tasting things I had ever had in my life, which is actually a really sad thing, because dude's girl was not used, she was going through a lot of shit emotionally, and I don't know I don't really know anything about her. I don't know her background. I just remember when I was telling her how I thought it was her cooking. I didn't know where these things were coming from. I didn't know that they were just in a fucking. I didn't know they were just made to order. You just pop them into a pan and pop them in the oven. And so I'm telling her oh my God, I got to come up with a name that I'm not gonna fucking. We'll just call her Angie. Hopefully I can stick to that. And I'm like, Angie, dude, these are the best. They're so good. Thank you so much. And she's all kind of getting bashful, oh, thank you. I'm making her feel like a good housewife or something. I don't know what the fuck was going on. But nevertheless, we hung out we threw darts. We all hung out for I don't know how long I slept. again, as soon as you wake up, you know, you're right back on the pipe. And at this point, I was full blown on the pipe. When I was just insufflating, which is the technical term for snorting, when I was just insufflating it, I was able to manage my addiction way better. I would just bump a line a line lasts a long time if you're getting good shit. So like, you know, I wasn't constantly doing it. When you transition from insufflating to smoking, the effects hit differently, and for some reason, smoking is way more addictive. And so my addiction started getting real out of control when I started smoking with them. And so, you know, you get some food in you, you twist the bubble, we probably threw some darts, did whatever, and then we hit the road again. And this is when I started to figure out that my relationship with him was starting to cause problems between the two of them, because she wanted to run with him, and she was used to. It's a fun experience, man. Like, I don't know. I'm definitely not glorifying this at all. I'm just telling you what I lived through. But admittedly, it was one of the highlights of it was a lot of fun. And so she was missing, dude. And he was choosing me over her, and that started to cause a lot of relationship problems between them. And he kind of like just didn't give a fuck. He was like, you know, he gave her a whole bunch of shit, like, here, you're good. And we bounced. And so we're back on the road again. Again, I'm not going to beat this to death, but we were doing this for some period of time. So we would run for about 2 weeks, and then we'd come back and crash out, and like I said, it was constantly just running clients, going to the gun range. I mentioned some of the stuff that this guy also had, like an entire arsenal of submachine guns, like I was mentioning. He had MP5s, he had the Uzis, the Tech 9s. One of the things I was shocked when I shot that Uzi is, like, you see in the movies, you know, the hood rats are all like, they're like massively inaccurate with these guns. Uzi is actually a really badass gun. Like, you can actually really be accurate with any of these submachine guns if you're not just like a fucking ghetto hood rat that thinks you can just spray and pray. I was really impressed with a lot of the different, he had so many weapons. I mean, it was just, and the thing that was crazy about this dude is he's got like high level felony amounts of drugs in the car and an entire arsenal that alone connected to the drugs would think would get you sent away for life. And this dude's just steadily doing like 15 to 35. Like, he's not even giving a fuck. And that started to make me paranoid. So our relationship had grown to a point where I asked dude one time, I was like, he was already a felon. This guy was actively having to go, he was on probation while all this was happening. One of the funniest things I ever saw, we were all sitting around the apartment one day, and we'd been passing the bubble around the coffee table, and Steve is like, oh man, I gotta fucking take a piss. And he leans back on the couch and flops out what looks like his junk and just lights this thing off all over the coffee table. We're like bailing out, like, what the fuck are you doing? What have you lost your fucking mind? Angie's is hip to the game. He starts laughing and pulls off what we thought was his junk. And it was this thing called a Wizinator. So when he would go on probation meetings, he would have to give urinalysis. They were drug testing him. And so they would watch him urinate. And he had purchased this device that was basically a fake phallus that you could fill the testicles with someone else's urine. So this dude was actually getting urine from one of his female client's sons, who I met on the upcoming run, actually. And she was having this kid piss in a cup and giving it to Steve, and then Steve would put it in this thing, and then you wear it all up under in your pants so that it warms the urine, because that's one of the ways they'll check to see if it's like legit. And so he would flop this thing out in front of his PO and squeeze on it and produce the urine for the cup. And this is how he was maintaining a 3 to 5 gram a day habit while having to regularly check in with his PO. And so It's like something you never forget when you watch your buddy whip his junk out and appear to go to the bathroom all over the table. So we get back in the car, we're running clients, and I start meeting all of these different clients. And like I said, this ranges from like 40-year-old soccer moms with 2 kids to a variety of fucking clients. So anyway, one day we're rolling down the street and I'm like looking at this dude's speedometer and he doesn't seem to give a fuck about anything. And I said, dude, what, like, if you get pulled over, like, what's gonna happen to you? And he's like, I'm gonna go to fucking prison for a long time. That's what's gonna happen. And I'm like, don't you worry about that shit? And he's like, no. And I was like, well, like, what would happen if we got pulled over and I was holding all of the shit? And he said, well, I mean, if you claimed it was yours, then they would arrest you, obviously. And I'm like, well, like, what would happen? And he's like, well, you know, you'd get a possession charge and we'd come bail you out and, you know, it'd be a minor thing. You'd get a little probation. And I said, well, that would probably be, like, my charge would be a lot more minor than yours. And he's like, yeah, it would. Like, you're going to get out on probation. I'm going to go to prison. I said, give me the shit. And he's like, what? I said, give me the shit. And he kind of looks at me, and I said, from now on, I'm going to carry the shit. And he's like, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I got you. I'm gonna carry the shit. And dude was like, wow. And so he hands me the Pelican case, and he pulls over on the side of the road, and he gets out, and he gets in the trunk, and he comes back, and he hands me this little pistol, this little 380. He said, if you're going to carry the shit, then you need to be prepared to protect it. And so again, I know, like, you know, again, I'm not trying to glorify situations, but I'm 21. This guy's like a father figure to me. Like, he, you know, we're running around doing all this shit that seems fun to me. He's teaching me how to shoot guns. He's teaching me all these different things. I'm learning a lot of things, actually. And now he's now I'm like, for real, his right-hand man. I've got a piece. I've got the stuff. And it just, like, I mean, like, looking back, I shouldn't have felt as good about it as I did. But honestly, I was on top of the fucking world, man. And so we started running and gunning, and we were going on these, like, 2-week cycles, come back, crash out, hit the fucking road again. Well, after the second or third round, I can't remember which one it is, Angie, Angie starts to she has a meltdown one night at their apartment, because we've been there hanging out again. He's kind of come home to resupply her, because, like I said, she's got a healthy habit. Sometimes when we were hanging out around the apartment, people would come through the apartment. So I had kind of, now at this point, I was like in the group. I had met all the key players, and she has a fucking fit. I don't know if this was pregnancy hormones or just, I mean, you can't blame her. Like, all of a sudden, there's this guy in her life that is totally dominating her boyfriend's time. She used to be his go-to, and now it's me. She's been totally fucking replaced. And she goes like, what are you guys, fucking gay together? And we're just like laughing hysterically, because what she doesn't understand is when I use amphetamines, they break my junk. Like, I absolutely, totally lose all interest in the other sex completely. And this apparently is a very abnormal response to this. It for a lot of people, it's a very sexual drug. For me, it is not. Like I told you, it causes me to, like, recoil inside myself. And so it was a regular occurrence on these runs that we would go on, that there would be girls there. There was more than a few girls that he had business relationships with, and a lot of them were strippers, and they would have their stripper friends over. And I remember this one time, we were at this girl's house, and we had, been doing our transactions or whatever, and we're hanging out, we're passing the bubble around, and, this girl, like, recognizes, like, who I am now, and that I'm Steve's fucking guy, and she sends one of her like, little girlfriends over to take care of me. And I don't really, you know, like, I'm just, this was one of the nights that I was, I mean, blasted out of my gourd. I don't know how many days I'd been up, but I was on cloud fucking 9 as far as you can get. And this girl comes over and she climbs up on my lap. And I'm kind of like, ugh. She was a very cute girl, young, great body. She starts like grinding on me, and I'm kind of like trying to like, can you get off me? I'm trying to hit this. And she can't really figure out what's going on. She started getting insecure. She like leans in. I'm like, nope, there will be no fucking kissing. She reaches down to grab me, and like I said in many videos, I'm not a small man, but under the influence of this, it's like a turtle. I don't know why this happens. And any kind of amphetamines and my junk will just about disappear. And so she goes to grab me, and she can't, and she goes, "Are you gay?" And I'm like, no, I'm not. I was like, look, you're a nice girl. I'm asocial. I just don't want this. Like, my body just doesn't work. And she started to kind of laugh, and she was like, "You're not the only one." And I'm like, really? And so now me and this girl are having this conversation. So Steve's off doing God knows what. Me and this girl sitting here, and she's like, yeah, it's weird. Some guys are this way. And so, like, me and this girl became, like, great friends because I was, like, the one dude that was cool. Like, she could hang out with, and I was close to the guy, and I would keep her loaded up. And so she and I are passing the bubble, and we're just hanging out and talking because I present no threat to her at all. She's not going to have to do anything sleazy. And so every time I come over, like, so I start becoming friends with all these people for various different reasons. One of the guys we dealt to was a coder, and I had experience in computers, and so he and I could sit around, talk about computers, and so I start fitting into all of the clientele groups, and so when Amy accuses us of being gay, Steve is just like, so then she starts getting even more fucking butthurt because she thinks like she's the butt of some kind of joke, and you know, like, you can't convince people. Baby, what's that noise? I hope y'all can't hear that goddamn noise. You can't convince people who are high and paranoid of shit. And so she's convinced that something's going on, and we're just like, whatever. He's like, yeah, that's it. Like, think whatever you want to think. We got to fucking go. So we head back out onto the road, and at this point, we've been running together for like a month and a half. And so, like I said, it doesn't take long to develop a relationship with somebody when, for one, we're with each other 24 hours a day for weeks on end. And we're doing, you know, it's kind of, it creates an intimate bond because this is dangerous. This is big. This is serious shit. If we get pulled over, if we get busted, this is not small potatoes that we're carrying around, and this arsenal and all of this shit. It bonds you to the person that you're running with because you have to trust them implicitly. And at this point, I have completely earned this guy's trust. But we're now moving on into the months, and I'm starting to get more than a little bit fucking strung out. And so I start having a lot of really serious paranoid delusions, and of course I'm sharing them with Steve because we run together constantly, and he's trying his best to kind of try to ignore it. But my paranoia and my delusions are growing farther and farther out of control. Excuse me, I gotta get a drink. My paranoid delusions are getting further and further out of control. And the shit finally hits the fan one day on the tail end of a long run. I'm sitting in this car with this gun and all of this shit. And Steve goes, I want to warn you, the next guy we're going to go see is, he's kind of intimidating. I'm like, what do you mean he's intimidating? He's like, well, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, you know, you've been skitzing like a lot, dude. And and I need you to fucking act right on this one. This one is not a fucking joke. And I'm like, bro, what the fuck do you mean? Well, like, what are you saying to me? And he goes, this dude's a cop. This dude's a cop? A cop, like active duty. And he's like, yeah. And he goes, when we go to this guy's house, we're gonna go through his garage, and he's got like an entire gym in his garage, and there's all of these pictures on the wall of him in uniform. And he's like, this dude is really big. Okay, so he's big, and he's intimidating, and he's a police officer, and I need you to be basically on your fucking best behavior. Panic fucking attack. We go to this guy's house, and just as he said, we walk in through this back door that goes into this garage. He's got this fucking power rack set up. He's got barbells. He's got the weights everywhere. He's got the fucking American flag on the wall. I think he was like he was a veteran. He's got these pictures, these frame pictures up around his weight setup of him in his like police dress uniform. It's this really nice house in this good area of town. We walk into this guy's living room. My eyeballs are about bugged the fuck out. I'm having a fucking panic attack. Steve, it talks to the guy, and the guy's like, "Hey man, I gotta hit the fucking ATM real quick." And Steve's like, "All right." And he's like, "Will you just take me? It's like right up the street." And I'm like, and Steve's like, "Yeah, man, let's go." And so we jump in Steve's car, and this dude's in the fucking back seat, and I am in the midst of a total fucking paranoid collapse. And so like I'm trying to keep it together, but I start becoming convinced that this is a setup. Like I've been up for too long again, just like with Nick. I'm on the end of about a month of like, now I wasn't up a month straight, but it's like you run 2 weeks, you sleep a day or so, you run 2 weeks, you sleep a couple of days, or you get some broken sleep, you're constantly up. So this is at the end of like a month or so of running, and dude, this shit's pure. It's good. You guys know how I am just on anabolics. Like my brain is starting to fucking fracture, and we're in this car, and I'm the one holding, and I've got a pistol, and I'm like, oh my god, this guy's setting me the fuck up. And so the guy's sitting in the back seat of the car, and he's like trying to direct traffic. He's like, hey, get over here. He's got us. He's gonna let us over. And my brain is concocting this scenario where all of these cops are like behind us in unmarked cars, and they're gonna get to this fucking gas station, and they're gonna pull me out, and they're gonna fucking bust me. My heart is just fucking pounding as hard as I can in my chest, and I must have been showing signs all over my fucking body. And so I start getting paranoid as fuck, and I can't remember exactly if it was when the dude was in the car, but I'm like looking at Steve, and Steve's looking at me, and he can tell don't start that shit. And I pop the fucking glove box open, and I pull that fucking piece out, and I put it in my fucking waist. And I'm like, if y'all are gonna fucking take me, if this is some scandalous fucking dirty shit, y'all are gonna take me, it's about to get ugly. You're not playing me like this. And Steve is like, oh, he's fucking freaking out because he doesn't know what the fuck I'm about to do. You got this guy who's clucking, whatever the fuck we used to call it. I have lost my mind. He can tell by my behavior. There's a fucking cop in the back seat. We're on the street. So we get to this ATM. Luckily, none of the things that I think are gonna happen. And we get to the ATM. Dude gets the money, whatever. We go back to his house. We go in the fucking house, and we sit down, and my demeanor obviously is not looking good. And this guy, I'm making this guy nervous. And Steve loads up this bubble, and he goes to pass it to this dude, and the dude goes, "Give it to him." And I'm like, I'm fucked. I fucked up. And so I take it, of course, and hit it. We pass it around. Dude starts calming down, and everything ends up being good. And So we complete this whole transaction, and we get in the fucking car, and Steve is fucking pissed. He's pissed. He's being real fucking quiet, and he's like, you know, eventually, like, again, he's not like we've got this great relationship. He's trying to fucking he's trying to like to like be cool, but this was almost a really ugly deal for him, and I'm clearly losing my fucking grip. And he looks at me, he's like, finally, he's like, what the fuck just happened, dude? And I tell him like the whole story about what I thought was going on, and you could tell it like ripped his fucking heart out. He was like, you thought I was setting you up? Like, again, like, this is the second time now that I've asked for more responsibility than somebody was offering me. And then once I got it, I started it made me more paranoid. Up until then, it was like, I'm just the guy in the car. They're not after me. And then I voluntarily took on all this responsibility and all this added risk, and it was fucking with my psyche, and I clearly just couldn't handle it. That's the reality. I obviously, you know, I mean, this is a fucked up scenario. I'm telling him, I'm like, dude, a cop? Like, how the fuck am I supposed to be in the commission of multiple massive charges? Like you gotta understand, like, what the fuck, dude? And he's like trying, basically, he's like being dad, for real. Like, dude's trying to understand his son. He's trying to give me the benefit of the doubt. And he goes, I need you to give me the fucking gun. And I'm like, what? And he's like, he's like, you're losing your shit. I don't know what the fuck you're gonna do. And I was like, I feel way more comfortable having it. And he's like, give me the fucking gun. And I'm just kind of like, you know, I'm like the bummed kid, you know, I'm like, I'm disappointed dad, and I feel like shit. And so I give it up, and we ran, you know, we finished out the day or whatever, and we go back, I forget where we're at. I think we're sitting in, like, we used to go to like car wash. We'd sit in like car washes, and that's how we would smoke sometimes during the day when we needed a refresher. And the thing with Steve is that he would run way too long, and he would nod the fuck out. And this dude nodded the fuck out on the road on more than one occasion. I had to wake him up, like, dude, what the fuck? You got to pull over, bro. Like, you need to get right. Like, you're nodding out on fucking 635. We're gonna fucking die here. And Steve was into some more shit. Like, we had a couple of situations where somebody offered him crack, and I could not believe he did it. And he had this really bad situation where he did it, and he passed out on the couch, and he had his pistol in his hand when he passed out, and I took it away from him. And he came to, and he couldn't find it, and he melted down on all of us. And I was like, dude, I've got it. I was just trying to protect you. Like, you were out holding this thing in your hand. And I got in the car with him, and he was like, why did you do that? I'm like, dude, don't ever do that shit again. Like, that, and I explained all the reasons why, from a chemical perspective, crack cocaine is one of the single stupidest drugs you could ever do. You never introduce a flame to a hydrochloride salt. There's all kinds of chemistry reasons why this is a really bad fucking idea. And this is when Steve started to figure out, like, dude, this guy's really fucking smart with this chemistry shit. We might be able to put this to fucking use. And so he lets it slide. But on this particular instance, he was like, dude, I got to cut you off for a little while. You got to take a fucking break. And Angie's, he's like, you got to take a break. Angie's on my fucking ass. He's like, basically, for your own well-being, for our relationship, like, you got to lay it down somewhere. I've got to find some place I can take you. And so I was like, okay, you know, obviously I'm begrudgingly accepting this, but at the same time, I'm so fucking paranoid and scared and terrified. Like, I kind of half-assed want to get the fuck away from this dude too. Like, I need to get right. I need to come down. I need to get back to reality. I've just had this fucking experience that absolutely, it was like my first major severe panic attack in life. I'd really, until that point, I had never known what a panic attack felt like. And I had had a full-blown, it scared the fuck out of me. It scared him. It scared the cop. And so I was like, I gave him the directions to my dad's house, and I had him take me to my dad's house. And he takes me to my fucking dad's house. I get out the car. He sits, waits till my dad opens the door. And I go up to my dad's house, and he lets me in. Nobody's seen or heard from me for like a month and a half since my dad dropped me off at this dude's house. Nobody knew where the fuck I was at. And so I think that put my dad in like a little bit softer position than he otherwise would have been in, because I think he was sitting around waiting to get a fucking phone call. And so he sees me get out of the car, and he lets me come into his house. And I'm sitting in this chair, and he's like, like he could tell, like I'm just kind of like gone, like I'm spaced the fuck out. I'm talking real slow. I've been up for probably another 2-3 weeks at this point. I haven't been eating. I must have looked like a fucking skeleton still. And he's like, what the fuck are you on? And I didn't even bother to try to lie. I just told him like kind of what was going on. I didn't tell him all the details, and I was just like, Dad, I gotta have a place to stay. Like I gotta get right. And at this point, it was like November 1st. It was early November, and it was pretty cold outside at that time. And so my dad was like, look, I'm going to pay for you to have a budget suite. It's like a rent by the week, rent by the month, like a little hotel. I'm sure you guys know what that is if you're in America. And so he says, get all the stuff that you want to take, and I'm gonna take you, and we're gonna get you set up. And so he takes me to this budget suite in Dallas, and he rents me a room. When I was talking to him on the phone the other day, he seemed to. I thought he rented me the room for 1 month. For what ended up being a total of 2 months. He thinks it was a few weeks. It really doesn't fucking matter. What's important is that we're finally getting to the part in the story where my actual true homelessness is about to finally begin. So Steve is basically cutting me off. He's telling me I need a fucking break. My dad has agreed to not have me on the street in the middle of fucking, it was cold at this point. And so he rents me this little budget suite. And I go in there basically and fucking crash out. And when I woke up, I had started trying to get back in touch with Steve because I wanted to, obviously I didn't want to come completely down. And he was basically at this point ignoring my phone calls. And so this is where I had suddenly faced with the fact that, okay, right now I have a place to stay, but I have no money, no food, no nothing, and I'm withdrawing basically. I'm coming down off of a really long meth bender, and this is getting ready to get really fucking ugly. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this here because it's run longer than usual, and then in part 5 I will explain to you how I lost my soul living on the street, or how I lost my soul basically panhandling so that I could fucking eat. So as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.